And the major takeaway from this study is that across the board in all 6 experiments, in imagined stress, in real stress, laboratory stress, actual classroom stress, and in embracing future challenges, just the learning about what stress can enhance your performance mindset is allowed students to do just that. Now, another really interesting feature of this study put out by Yeager and colleagues was that the interventions were one time and relatively brief, or we could even say extremely brief. Whereas a lot of previous experiments had looked at growth mindset interventions that were on the order of 4 to 6 to 8 tutorials lasting anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour each. This experiment employed just one 30-minute intervention. So when I heard about these results and read the paper, I got very excited. I wanted to know, what is this magic intervention exactly? And I'm sure you're thinking the same. So I contacted Dr. Yeager, and he was gracious enough to provide me some examples of what's contained within this tutorial so that I could give you those examples in real time during this episode. So basically, the tutorial starts off with a question about stress. It actually has a little field where you can fill in an answer to the following question. Can you recall a time when you experienced stress, and what was that stress related to? And here I'm paraphrasing. So what I put in response to this, because I actually filled out the form itself, was when I was a postdoc, which by the way is the 4 to 6 year period of time that comes after your PhD training. I wrote, when I was a postdoc, I was under a lot of competitive pressure to try and finish my projects. I was working under a diminished income, meaning I wasn't getting paid very much relative to the cost of living in the area I lived at the time. And I was also socially isolated from a lot of my friends that previously I had lived very close to. That was a stressful time that I could recall. In fact, no other time in my life, as I recall, was as stressful as being a postdoc, which is not to say that I didn't enjoy being a postdoc. I delighted in doing the science I did and being surrounded by the people I was surrounded by, but it was very, very stressful for those and additional reasons. So that's how this tutorial starts off. And I believe that the reason that they asked that question at the beginning of the tutorial is to kind of cue up cognitive mechanisms that surround one's own understanding of stress. And then as you click through the tutorial, it starts to explain, of all things, neuroscience and neuroplasticity. It says, research from neuroscience tells us that through effort, our brain can change. It can form new connections that we call synapses. So, of course, I was delighted to see all that information. I'm very familiar with that type of information. It also says things like, and here I'm reading directly from the tutorial, difficulty, struggle, and frustration when you're learning something are not signs that you've reached your limits. They're signs that you're expanding your limits.